BBC. Happy New Year, Liam.
Happy New Year. I'm got a slightly sore head, but happy to be here.
Hey, yes, absolutely. Well, look, talk to me about this initially. So Sadiq Khan spent up to £1.5 million of public money on a BBC-backed woke pro-EU, NHS and BLM firework drone display. I don't remember consenting to pay for this.
I know, it really was a full house, wasn't it? NHS, BLM, climate change, EU, all of the, the typical issues that you might expect Sadiq Khan to trumpet. But it's just quite extraordinary that the BBC actually loaned their expertise and the infrastructure of this supposedly neutral public service broadcaster to support the secretive planning of this highly, highly political, I think we can call it propaganda broadcast. And it does really beg the question, would the BBC do such a thing for a Tory mayor? Would they do such a thing for a firework display that was celebrating leaving the European Union and lowering taxes, maybe? I think we all know the answer to that. All these issues seem to align pretty closely with the values that are associated with the BBC, and there they were supporting it. So yeah, no pretense of neutrality. I think for me as well, it was just quite tiresome. They sort of said, this display was about bringing the nation together and cheering us up. And the last thing we really wanted when we're just trying to have some drinks at home is a political divisive broadcast. It was just, I think most people were watching it just thinking, oh, will you just shove off? It was just not what we needed, really.
Look, so some people would say, Liam, of course, that these issues have been very, very prominent. I suppose the Black Lives Matter demonstrations and activism that took place was a major deal in 2020. And so if we're saying goodbye to 2020, maybe it was fair enough to actually have some kind of nod and a wink to it. I know that Sadiq Khan clearly is very pro climate change. I know that actually from first-hand experience because he slapped me with a massive congestion charge on my car, which I did not realise I had to pay. And that escalated quick, let me tell you. Also, we know he's very pro-EU, don't we? And Brexit, again, was a major element of 2020. So in some ways, was it a bit fitting that we had all of this stuff?
Well, you could say that. I mean, but I mean, if it was just a summary of the year, they would have had, something positive about Brexit. They would have had, something positive about the Tory victory. But it wasn't. It was just these issues coming from one side, one perspective. So, they were a prominent issue. And the thing about BLM is, it obviously raised a lot of very important issues. And I think a lot of people had a lot of sympathy with it at the beginning. But as it descended into riots, and then they put up their manifesto, which was essentially a Marxist wish list, and then they registered as a political party, it has been very clear that, it's not just an anti-racism movement, right? It's a highly divisive Marxist political mob who I think actually quite cynically use anti-racism to further their leftist cause. And I think that is very clear. They've literally registered as a political party. So the BBC, there's legal restraints on how they can promote political parties. They have to give balance to that. Now they're a political party. I think viewers would be encouraged to write into the BBC and say, you're promoting a political party here, and you have a right to you have a legal responsibility to do it in a balanced way. So no, it wasn't just a summary of the year. I think it was quite clearly very, very one-sided. And I mean, the other thing is, the BLM thing has been so prominent in football as well. And it was very notable that as soon as the public came back, from Cardiff to Millwall to West Ham, they made their voices heard as soon as they were. And this is the thing about the coronavirus lockdown. Normal people, working class people, have been completely removed from the public sphere. We have been banished. Okay, and that I think quite suits the elites. The people that voted for Brexit, the great unwashed, the rabble. They're out of the way. They're at home. They're watching Netflix. And they can sort of get away with just hammering these fashionable, quite annoying causes because we're all sat at home. And I think that is why quite often, I mean, I'm speculating here, the sort of pro-lockdown people seem to be quite comfortable right now with all us out of the way. And I think that's why they got away with it at this firework display. because everyone was, they planned it in secret. Normal people weren't there, and they could turn it into this elitist display of their sort of lovey causes. So, I'm quite keen to get normal people back on the street so they can sort of make their voices heard and put an end to this rubbish.
Well, 10.8 million people, of course, really kind of aided by the fact that we were all locked down, did tune into this. I'd be intrigued to see how many people would have tuned into it if we actually had all of our freedoms, of course. I mean, one of the things for me, I think you raised some very interesting points there about the Black Lives Matter organisation and the wider connotations to it. The fact that it has morphed, I think, from a slogan and a well-branded, simply kind of race relations body into basically a very, very left-wing political organisation. And I think part of the problem for a lot of people is that they don't necessarily see that side of it. It's all very well and good seeing things like the taking the knee and just the absolutely, completely and utterly necessary elements where it comes to just, diminishing racism in society. We need to obviously root out racism left, right and centre. Of course we do. But I did notice something on the BBC, which is Match of the Day. I wondered if you'd clock this, which was that when the players take the knee at the start of the football matches on the Premier League, the commentators always say, or they used to say anyway, in solidarity with ending racism everywhere. And now what they say, as at least they did last week, so what I could see, was ending racism and social injustice wherever it may be. And I thought, hang on a minute, that's a leap now, isn't it? We've gone now from the very relevant and very important racial issues to essentially talking about Marxism.
Yeah, precisely. This is a very, very common thing. That people like Sadiq Khan and the BBC will pick things that are essentially hard to disagree with. And when you start talking about eliminating all inequality and things like that, you're basically talking about socialism, right? Where
we talk about the radical redistribution of wealth. I mean, that's pretty lefty.
Exactly. And the thing is, people are clocking onto this now, right? I mean, a poll amazingly published in The Guardian showed that 55% of people now think that BLM has made race relations harder. I live in a mixed race household here, and and it's just I get sick of people wanting to talk about BLM because I just it does feel like it's just brought up a load of issues that I think the country is actually dealing with quite well, and people.
What I will say, Liam, just to come in there, is that there is the argument, and Lewis Hamilton makes this argument, although I'm not sure he's the best example I could use there. I'm not sure whether or not he's your favourite person, but Lewis Hamilton does make this argument, and I think there is some sense to this, which is that when you get given a voice or a platform, as it were, you have to maximise that. And I think for a lot of people who have been victims of racism over the years, of course, a very real racism that has existed in some sections of society, they've felt like it's been an issue for a little while and then it's gone away. And what they want to do now is really kind of try to capitalise on that. But we've had a lot of tweets coming in. Why is public money being used for political statements? That's come through from Faye. And you can join the conversation as well at talkRADIO on Twitter. And Liam, this is clearly a big element of your campaign for defund the BBC. And it's not just our New Year's Eve celebrations, which cost us £1.5 million to have quite a left-wing woke New Year's Eve celebration. They seem to be doing it in other stuff as well. I was watching Call the Midwife. That's the one, isn't it? Which, don't ask me why. It was Christmas Day. It's been a long day, and there was a scene in that where basically they were actually, even in Call the Midwife, there were little subtle digs about Brexit. I remember thinking, do people realise that essentially this is a bit of an indoctrination by the back door, isn't it?
Exactly. I mean, your point earlier about people using their platform and stuff, it's true. And it is nice when people raise important issues, but there's a time and a bloody place, isn't there? And I think when you're trying to enjoy a glass of champagne and bring in a new year after what has been a very long and very difficult year for most people, the last thing you want is this rubbed in your face. The last thing you want when you're nursing a sore head and you're trying to watch something like Call the Midwife because you can't find the remote to change the channel is a bloody message about Brexit. And I think that's why this one just seemed so damn annoying. And when we saw Sadiq Khan smugly tweeting away this morning saying, haha, he actually had a go at the Daily Mail for daring to criticise his propaganda. He was so smug, and he, as you say, it's our money to promote his causes at a time when TfL is on the news, at a time when the mayor is going to central government with a begging bowl because he's bankrupted the city. I think we don't need to see that smug face. We'd rather see him sorting out the trains and reorganising London, which is on its knees.
Well,
so
next time you come on, Liam, make sure you say what you really think. All right, Liam Deacon, their campaigner for Defund the BBC. Thank you so much, and have a great 2021. I'm sure I'll speak to you very, very soon, Liam. Liam there, of course, talking about the fact that 1.5 million big ones of taxpayers' cash was spent on Sadiq Khan's super